Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us today. I am here with Brittany Krystle. She is a personal brand and growth expert with almost a decade of experience in personal brand strategy and content development. She's worked with some of the biggest names out there, including one of my faves, Gary Vee, and she's also worked with tons of thought leaders and influencers. And we're going to talk to Brittany a lot about personal branding, and also one of the platforms I'm not really familiar with or on, sorry Brittany, LinkedIn, but she's probably after this call, I'm going to have to do that. So thank you so much, Brittany, for showing up and hanging out with us today.
Well, thank you so much, Gwen. I love you, and we're going to get you on LinkedIn by the end of this.
Oh man, I'm on there, but don't look, it hasn't been updated in a while. So Brittany, for anyone who is, living under a rock and don't know who you are, please share a little bit about your story on how you got started with your personal brand and what you do.
Okay, like you said, I'm a personal brand and growth expert, and I actually was a former lawyer. I transitioned into this career, and I think that's something really special that's going on right now, because I do believe that whatever it is you currently do, you can leverage the online space to do and create the business and life that you want. I know that sounds hokey, but because I've seen it happen every day pretty much, sorry, my microphone tilted, it's really just incredible, and I've done it myself. When I graduated from law school, just to give context, I went like you into the entertainment space. I thought I wanted to work in television. The online space wasn't what it was at that time. There was Facebook, but it wasn't the place. And basically I had a slew of jobs that I just wasn't happy at in Hollywood. And I was studying to go to business school because I thought that was the best way to get a job in marketing and branding. And my now fiance sent me a Gary Vee tweet in 2014. I was like, I don't think you need to go to business school. Look into this guy. And it was just a tweet saying that there were job openings in the LA office at VaynerMedia, because they were opening an LA office. So it was brand new. And I picked a random job I thought I could get off the website. And I applied, and I happened to, after 5 rounds of interviews, I got that job. And I met Gary at the Christmas party 4 months later, and we happened to be on the same trivia team. And we hit it off, and he came back the next month, and we had a one-on-one, and he was just like, you're overqualified for what you do. What do you really want to do? And I thought I wanted to invest his money. Like, I used to play poker, so I was like, oh, okay, like the startup scene seems interesting. I had an idea that I wanted to work for myself. I knew I didn't really like being micromanaged. I like my freedom a lot, and that wasn't what I was getting in the Hollywood jobs and the legal jobs that I'd had before. And he was like, you know what? Look into influencers and look into influence and look into growth hacking. And he asked me if I'd consider moving to New York, and I said, I've lived in New York, it depends why. So over the next, I'd say 5 months at that point, I kept checking in with him, and he kept asking me how long I would consider moving out for. And then he finally was like, listen, I'm about to get really serious. This is in 2015. I'm about to get really serious about my personal brand. My 4th book is going to be coming out, the Ask Gary Vee book. I think you know something about influence. I think you know something about growth. Give me a year. And I was like, this is going to be my MBA year. Yes. Like in my head, I said that. And I was also thinking like, okay, at the end of this year, I'm going to pitch him a business idea that he can invest in. And then I moved out to New York in October 2015, and I fell in love with personal branding. The team was so small at the time. Now he's got like around 30 people, but it was like 6 to 8 of us, and we had to do everything and anything that's required to build a personal brand. From the influencer outreach, I had to find 750 influencers to hold his book for free in March of 2016, and to knowing how to optimize on all the different platforms, and writing his articles, pretty much everything and anything. But what really hit me is how important the content was for other people. I was, in the DMs and seeing the response to Gary changing their lives through content. People who don't know him. And that to me was the trigger. I was like, I really am invested in people. Growing a personal brand made me feel way better than growing, like, no offense to regular brands, but that just didn't inspire me the same way. And the reaction it was getting from people, I was like, I want to do this. And I knew Gary was testing everything on himself. I knew he was building this into an arm, a personal brand arm. And I told him as soon as I knew that, I was like, I want in on that. because I also knew I needed to be able to replicate that system. And I ended up moving over to Vayner Talent, which was the personal branding arm of the agency. We're basically doing what we did for Gary at a high level price and doing it quickly for people who are very busy. It's like a $30,000 a month product. And as I was doing that, I realized I wanted to do this on my own. I wanted to do my own thing. There just came a point where people always ask me, like, why would you leave? I don't want to show up at an office. I want to choose who I take on. I want to scale my time. There's just all of these other things that now I'm starting to talk about publicly that were the reasons that I left, but it had nothing to do with, the job itself. Gary was the best boss I ever had, but I knew that I needed to step out. And then that's when I really started gaining confidence, when I was taking on consulting clients and working with like Marie Forleo, and I more than replaced my salary right away, and then I've just been changing my business model since then, so we can go into all of that.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Now, with you saying that, Gary had a team of 6 to 8 people, and now he's like over like a team of a lot more than that, what would you say to influencers who are just starting out, just on their own, and they're realizing that there's so much content that needs to be done? Like, what would your advice be to them?
So I want people to take a step back, because I actually specialize in working with people who are super busy and entrepreneurs, and they're newer to what they're doing, and they just need stuff that is actually actionable. So Gary and the team, and at that point, we were just doing a lot of repurposing. I think what you do is you focus on the big piece. So the big piece of pillar content that you can make consistently. Like if you're not a video person, I actually wouldn't start forcing you to do video first. For me, I have a podcast, and I knew I could show up on audio every week and deliver value. And from that, I could create other pieces of content to put on certain platforms. So I focused on creating one piece, and then I focus now on mostly, even though I can, I know where everything needs to be, but for my personal attention, Instagram, because I know my people are there, and LinkedIn, because I also know, we'll talk about this, my people are starting to be there now, and also the level of work that's required is minimal to get maximum results. So it's like, where do you maximize your time? You don't need to be everywhere to start growing. As you scale, then you can worry more about that. But that's why I love, and like I said, we'll talk about LinkedIn. If something the length of a tweet can actually pick up virality, or you can share something, or the videos on there, like a good video on there is only like 30 seconds long, you have 30 seconds. So there's ways to think about that strategically. And if you really only need to start with 1 or 2 platforms and really hone your voice, I think that's more important in building up that confidence, because there's nothing more confidence shattering than trying to be on 20 platforms at once and trying to talk to all these different people and not being able to engage with them. I'd rather you focus on 1 or 2 platforms where you can show up and engage.
That's awesome. So I have always admired you because I feel like you're super confident, super badass. And a lot of people are super scared about like putting themselves out there, right? Because personal brand, you're not hiding behind a brand name. You're hiding, you're speaking as yourself. And a lot of people are really scared of that. I don't know if you have clients that you've coached through that. So what can you give advice to for influencers who are struggling with a confidence piece? Like, what can they do to build that up as they grow their audience?
It is so common. This is like one of the most common things. People have the most qualified people. I'm talking people who are making 7 figures in their business that I know are scared to post content. They have that imposter syndrome. They're worried about what people will think. Like these people that you would not think have these issues, pretty much everyone has them at some level. So again, it's about making it more simple and starting small. Here's the deal. We all have personal brands, and we're just not leveraging it. I realize the problem for a lot of people happens to be that they're actually judging other people, which is why they're worried about the judgment. But most people who are judging other people, who are worrying about the judgment, aren't leaving nasty comments on other people's stuff. So at the end of the day, like, you get one life. I'm always asking myself at the end of each day, it's a morbid thing to say, but if I died tomorrow, would I be happy with the life that I lived? And if I'm not speaking my truth, I'm not happy with the life that I live. If I was just going to work and doing the thing and not saying something because I was afraid my colleague would think something about me, that doesn't feel right to me. And I think about that a lot, and I think it's putting it in perspective, because a lot of people are just heads down, not thinking about the bigger purpose. And that is what it's about. What do you really care about in life? And for most people, it shouldn't be about just putting something out there to put something out there. You should be putting something out there because you want to impact and you want to affect change. And that does require, looking inward. And so that's a whole process that I put people through, because people don't think about it. People think that they're coming to me for their personal brand, but a personal brand is personal. It really is. So the thing is, people aren't really, for the most part, people are trained to be employees. That's kind of the education system. So what I like to do is help people practice their voice. Most people aren't used to giving their opinion openly. Like, that's just not the case. You're like, if you're at a normal job, you're definitely like trying to position it or not give it or not offend anybody. And what I like to have people do is, especially if you're doing it in your industry, consume, let's say you consume an article in the New York Times around influencers, just for an example. What are your thoughts on that? Don't read anyone else's thoughts on it. What are your thoughts on it? And post something about it and then share that linked out too. Like, just little micro steps is what builds that confidence. You're not just going to be super confident and then post a 12-minute video on YouTube talking all about your life if you've never, if you won't even pick up your phone and do a story. So it's even just starting out with sharing things. Do it consistently. And again, with industry stuff, I work with a lot of people who are trying to build it in their own business. You have 3 thoughts a week on work. You have 3 thoughts a week on work, or you're consuming content related to your industry. Just start by giving those 3 thoughts a week. And then it builds over time.
That's such a great point, Brittany, because a lot of people think they need to be creating all the content, when in fact they can just be commenting and sharing their perspective on the content, because that's also content, right?
And I'm going to interrupt about the LinkedIn thing. On LinkedIn specifically, because this is why I'm obsessed with it, comments, you can actually grow strictly through engagement. You don't actually need to post content. Yes, content speeds things up, but because a comment counts as content with their algorithm, people will see your smart comment and smart ideas related to your industry or whatever you commented on in their feed. And that can bring in, business, and we'll talk about influencer stuff, but business and potential brand deals. And people love seeing people be smart about their stuff, and then they recommend it or they like it and they connect with you. We're in such a great place. I just love this stuff because there's so much opportunity.
So I was listening to your podcast the other day. If you guys are not listening to Brittany's podcast, Beyond Influential, definitely go check it out. I recommend it to my students all the time because there's such great wisdom and knowledge in there that from a free podcast, it's such great value. So thank you for that. You're what I listen to during my drive when I'm driving. And Brittany says she just came to a point, or has for a long time, just stopped caring about what other people think. And I think that's such a great strength of yours, that once you get to that point, it's not even about thinking about how people are going to judge you or being afraid, but it's just not caring because you have a mission and you have that purpose that you need to fulfill. So talk to us a little bit more about that.
And just so people know, Gwen was on the show, episode 13. You should listen to her episode, and I'm going to have her back on to talk about her incredible business that she's built even since then. But to talk about that kind of, confidence piece and the not caring what people think, again, that happens over time. And I just want to say that I didn't know my purpose a few years ago. That's one of those things that I think people think, I don't know my higher purpose. I figured out my higher purpose through content. The reason why I even started posting content was because I was posting content for Gary and having to think in his head and talk in his voice. And it was just sitting with me that I had thoughts and I had ideas and I had opinions on the same thing, whether they're similar or different, but I wanted to be sharing those things. So if you scroll back to whatever, really far in my Instagram, I didn't know that I was going to go into this space. I didn't know I was going to be talking about LinkedIn necessarily. I was just posting and talking about the things, document, don't create. I was talking about the things that were going on. And as I started talking to more people and meeting more people, it became more and more clear the type of people I like to serve and the type of thing that I like to talk about and where I can actually help people. And my purpose and mission has evolved completely than where it was 2 years ago. And the kind of person and what I'm talking about is constantly evolving. It's never a thing where I think self-awareness is constantly changing, and you need to be constantly checking in with yourself. What you think and feel like about your purpose and your business is going to be different 3 months from now than it is even right now, and definitely year to year. So if you don't know, that's totally cool. Just start putting out things that feel right and add value for you right now, and then that builds on itself.
That's such great advice. I get a lot of influencers who are like, well, this is how I feel right now, but I don't know if it's going to change. And I'm like, that's fine. Your audience...
It's going to change.
It is going to change. And your audience loves you. And they're the ones that are going to stay are willing to grow with you, whether your, what you talk about changes or not. And that's why I feel like personal branding is like what you said. It's personal. It's a personal connection. And just because you decide that you're going to take up surfing, it's not going to make a difference to them.
And there are people who are just not going to like you. And I think that's a hard realization for a lot of people to come to. But I always say it this way. It's like, I've never met anyone who likes everyone. You just don't. And that's okay. Like, the people who like you, when you're putting out content, they'll find you. And I can't even tell you, like, our relationship started, online because of an online relationship that I had. And I think that it's escalated the relationships that I've had and how deep they've been because people feel like they know me through this content. Like, you want those people who genuinely like you. People are always trying to PR themselves where they're like, oh, I want people to think a certain thing and get XYZ job, let's say. But once you get that job, you can't maintain that facade, which is why I kind of just completely embraced being myself, because I can't show up as someone different to do your consult or whatever it is. Like, you need to know that you're getting me and this is my style and this is how I work. So that way it's just easy. And then you don't have to sell yourself or pitch yourself as much. And I think that's really the case for influencers. The more true you can be to, niching down, that's another thing. People are so worried about being pigeonholed, but it's really easy to transition, in my opinion. But people are so worried about that. It's like, no, just really tell your story the way you want, because that's going to be your selling point. Because I see, and I'll just use Gary as the example, you see so many Gary Vee copycats. I don't remember any of their names, because why would you ever go with that if I can go with the original? Like, I'd rather just pay Gary. I don't want that. I want you for your specific skill set and your specific voice. And if you are too busy looking at everyone else's stuff or trying to cater to someone, you are not going to make money, and it's not sustainable. Like, you're done. Sorry, was that like super aggressive?
No, I love that. I mean, I'm like you, Brittany. I'm very direct to the point, and sometimes, I guess this is the reaction that my students get. They get like this, I'm shock, and then I'm like processing, and then I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're right. Like, you do not want to be the second-rate version of someone else, right?
No, and you're not going to command the high fees. You want to be you, and it's like, no, I need you. I need you because you say it this way, or you take this kind of visual, or you style in this specific thing, like whatever it is. But I know the influencer space, and I understand the comparison and the like looking at what everyone else is doing and what's hot. Do not give a fuck about what's hot. It's like, what works for you that you can do consistently, that you love, and that cater to your audience. And if your audience ends up evolving and you're interested in talking more about something else, I never recommend that you hold yourself back to just hold on to that audience. Like, you need to let yourself do what you need to do, because there are people out there who are interested in everything. Like, I know people just try to do what's popular, and it's not sustainable. And I'm all about the long-term game.
I love that. So speaking of the influencer space, a lot of influencers focus on, their channel, which is, sometimes their blog or YouTube. Some of them have podcasts. And then Instagram has been kind of the platform of choice, just because I feel like brands have been looking for that. It's more visual. But can you tell us why it would be beneficial for them to also be on LinkedIn?
This is my favorite, because LinkedIn is one of those things where we're now, because of the reach that people can get and the access to people, what people don't realize for like the blogger influencer person, it's great that you're tagging all these brands. And listen, you should be posting on Instagram. You need to be doing that. That's your audience. Those are your people. But if you can not only speak directly to the decision makers and get in front of those people and show that you are skilled in your business and you completely understand what's going on and that you have this audience, like, you're speaking directly to them. Like, if you're tagging everybody at Sephora on your Instagram, guess what? You can actually be connecting with the VP of Sephora and they're seeing your content directly. Like, to me, it's like, oh my God, mind blowing. Why wouldn't you cover your bases that way? Especially because they want to understand that space. I think I still think most people, even on the brand side, don't fully understand the influencer space. So if you can be that person that's talking about your business and even getting them to understand, you're top of mind. And that's interesting. And then you become a thought leader in that space. You're not just somebody who posts a cute outfit or posts about food. You're someone who understands your business. You're someone who's smart. You're someone who's articulate. You're somebody who, if I'm doing a panel on influencers, I want that person. And you can show your personality in a different way that doesn't always come across. Because if your audience on Instagram, let's say you have a huge audience and what they care about is your fashion tips, you're not talking about the business of it so much. And maybe those captions are directly about, clothes. This is the place where you can really show your chops in a way that you can't anywhere else. And these people are primed for that networking thing. I think it's like 4 or 5 members drive business decisions. 44% of that platform makes over $75,000 a year. So I talk to so many people who, are creative and they're doing a lot of free collabs. How about you work directly with people who actually have money? So for me, it's like such a no-brainer compliment. And you can incorporate, take that picture that, is your outfit and talk about why you specifically chose this outfit for this audience that you have. Talk to me about your business. There's a whole system that if you have influence and you actually have an audience, you know how to build an audience, you know how to build that attention. Talk about it. So it's pretty easy. And again, with LinkedIn, because text posts and you don't need to do a whole thing, it's really not as stressful because there's so much less competition. It's something like less than 1% of people who are even active on the platform, and there's over 600 million professionals on this platform, is posting content. So short videos, if you can post something the length of 2 Instagram stories, you can make content on LinkedIn. If you have a thought on an article, you can make content. You don't need to be posting 5 times a day, every day, so people can see your stuff. The likelihood of you just doing minimal effort gets results. And so anyway, I'm obviously passionate about it.
I could see that, and that's great because I feel like, when you are passionate about something, it really shows, and that translates into everything, your branding, your business. And so what can someone do to just kind of get started on LinkedIn?
Definitely, I'm sure most people who listen to this probably have a cute photo. So the most important things right now would be profile photo and headline. So the headline is basically 120 characters that you get, and if anyone spent any time on LinkedIn, those 2 things are the most important because when you're connecting and when you're commenting, that's what people are reading. LinkedIn's super SEO friendly, so for anybody who even has a LinkedIn and hasn't updated it in forever, if I Google you, even if you have a great blog, it probably comes up in the top 3 search results. So just in terms of covering your bases, you should definitely adjust the headline, but make the headline not only who you are, not just a job title, but something that you want people to, that you would want your ideal audience, the person you'd want to reach on LinkedIn, to search. It's very SEO keyword friendly that way, and you can include your story and in summary and do that later. But profile, picture, headline 100%, and then I would start commenting and go down. There's hashtags, and it's definitely just not as sophisticated as it is on Instagram, which is why it's great. It's like I would play around with it, see what content is out there. Who are the brands you're interested in reaching out to? Who works at these brands? Are they posting content? Is there an opportunity to engage with them or comment on their content in a smart way? So that way, when you do send the connection request, it's not like you're not cold and you probably have something to say or a connection point. So it's starting that phase, and I would share their content then. I literally think like you can be posting content in that way where you're just sharing their stuff 3 times a week and start seeing traction, start seeing things coming into, people connecting with you. So really basic, but we can get really complicated if you want.
Well, Brittany teaches LinkedIn in her course, LinkedIn Laws. So I'll send you guys a link to that in this episode so you guys can go check it out. Again, she has, really opened up my eyes to this because people are always asking me, how do I get in touch with people at these brands? Well, on LinkedIn, you can search people who work at these companies and talk to them directly about, content partnerships and collaborations. And like you said, you can really be talking to them instead of hoping that someone that's handling the social media on Instagram will see it.
Exactly. You want to build those long-term relationships. And something I do teach is also the worst thing ever, and you'll still see this if you are on LinkedIn at all, the spammy, like, let's get on a call, or like, are you interested in my whatever, that hard sell, that right hook. It's like, no, like, build the relationship with these people. But the easiest way to do it is engaging with their content and then also posting your own content that shows that you know your business. So that way, when you do have that moment where you're talking about long-term collaborations, you guys have a familiarity. They can do research on you right there. They don't need to go right away to your Instagram or do this other work. You do the work for them. You do the work for them so that they pay you and they do the work with you.
That's awesome. Well, I feel like, like you said, it's just still some uncharted territory, and it's still early, I feel like, in LinkedIn.
Very.
So if you start now, imagine how much that, that work and effort will multiply as the years go by. It's kind of like, didn't you wish you started on Instagram 10 years ago?
So this is exactly, thank you for already making that point. Right now, in terms of, to put it in perspective for people, in terms of the algorithm and what's going on LinkedIn, this is Facebook and Instagram 5 or 6 years ago. Legitimately, the barrier is low, the content quality is not, the videos that are up there are not YouTube quality videos. This is the time to test it out. You don't have the competition, you are early, it doesn't matter, like, nobody's judging you. Go on there. If there's no other, I love this one because people are like, oh, well, I don't see other influencers on there. That's fantastic. That is great news for you. That is amazing. That means that it's open season. Like, that's what's happening, and these people actually are using this platform. Like, these are the decision makers. They're there. And so don't waste the opportunity.
That's so exciting. I'm sure everyone's going to be updating their LinkedIn profile and headlines right after this episode. So thanks again, Brittany, for joining us today and sharing all the goodness. And if you guys want to follow Brittany on Instagram, it's Brittany Krystle, and definitely check out her podcast Beyond Influential, and I'll be sending you guys or giving you guys all the links in this episode. Thanks, Brittany.
Thank you so much, Gwen.
Bye.
Bye.